there is a hum in the room with you right now. It is just below the threshold of hearing, a subliminal static generated by the electronics you trust, the architecture that shelters you, and the biological machinery pulsating inside your own skull. You ignore it. You have been trained to ignore it, because acknowledging the noise would require processing it. And your brain is an organ designed for efficiency, not truth. You are currently operating under the assumption that you are a rational observer of reality. You believe that your opinions are the sum of your experiences, that your confidence is a metric of your competence, and that the world you perceive is the world that actually exists. This is the first lie. It is the foundational error upon which your entire personality has been constructed. You are not the pilot of this vessel. You are a passenger who has been handed a disconnected steering wheel to keep you docile while the autopilot drives you off a cliff. The crash happened miles ago. You just haven't felt the impact yet. To understand how deep this necrosis goes, we must perform a vivisection of the modern ego. We must peel back the layers of neural recalibration that have taken place since your infancy. The human brain consumes roughly 20% of the body's metabolic energy, a staggering cost for a single organ. Nature, in its ruthless pursuit of survival, mandated a biological shortcut. Doubt is expensive. Doubt requires calculation, comparison, and the simulation of multiple potential futures. Certainty, however, is cheap. Certainty is a metabolic discount. Evolution didn't select for accuracy, it selected for speed. The hunter who paused to calculate the trajectory of the spear starved. The hunter who threw with blind, delusional confidence ate. You are the descendant of the delusional. You carry within you a genetic predisposition to overestimate your grasp of complex systems, a biological imperative that prioritizes the feeling of knowing over the act of understanding. But this archaic software is now running on a machine connected to a global network of infinite complexity. The mismatch is catastrophic. You walk into a voting booth, a stock market application, or a heated debate with the absolute conviction of a master, while possessing the comprehension of a child. This is not arrogance. It is a protective mechanism. If you truly understood how little you knew about the infrastructure that keeps you alive, the precarious supply chains, the fragile power grids, the algorithmic trading bots that decide the value of your labor, you would collapse into catatonic paralysis. So, your mind fills in the gaps. It performs a systemic redaction of the chaos, smoothing over the jagged edges of reality with a veneer of simplicity. You tell yourself stories. The economy works like a household budget. Politics is just good guys versus bad guys. These are not simplifications, they are hallucinations. And these hallucinations are the only thing standing between you and the void. This phenomenon has a name. Though the pop psychology definition you are familiar with is woefully inadequate, you know it as the Dunning-Kruger effect, a quirk where the incompetent overestimate their ability. That definition is safe. It allows you to point the finger at others, at the bad driver, the incompetent boss, the loud neighbor. But the true horror of the data is that it is not limited to the incompetent. It is a universal constant. The more complex the world becomes, the wider the gap grows between your confidence and your reality. We have entered an era of cognitive shadowing, where the feedback loops that used to correct our errors have been severed. In the past, if you were confident you could fight a wolf, the wolf provided immediate, visceral feedback. You were wrong, and you bulled. Today, you can be confident that you understand geopolitics, or virology or macroeconomics, and the internet will provide you with a curated echo chamber that not only agrees with you, but radicalizes your error. The algorithm does not care about truth, it maximizes engagement. And nothing engages the human mind more than the validation of its own false confidence. You click on the headline that confirms your bias. The machine learns, it feeds you another. Slowly, imperceptibly, your reality is narrowed. The counter-arguments are filtered out. The nuance is stripped away. You are placed in a warm, comfortable silo where you are always right, where every piece of data reinforces your pre-existing delusions. You feel smarter every day. You feel more informed. In reality, you are undergoing a process of intellectual atrophy. Your ability to process dissonance, to look at a fact that contradicts your worldview and accept it, is withering away. You are becoming a closed loop. And when a closed loop encounters a reality it cannot predict, it doesn't adapt. It shatters. We see the debris of these shattered realities everywhere. We see it in the volatile swings of the financial markets, driven not by value, but by the collective hallucination of meme stock investors who mistook a bull run for genius. We see it in the collapse of disastrous startups led by charismatic founders who believed they could bend physics to their will, only to defraud billions. These are not anomalies. They are the logical endpoint of a culture that rewards the projection of certainty over the admission of ignorance. We have built a hierarchy of hollow gods. Look at the corporate ladder. Look at political office. The systems are designed to filter out the cautious, the thoughtful, the ones who say, "I don't know." They elevate the narcissist who screams, "I alone can fix it." We are led by the blind, who are cheered on by the blind, marching in lockstep toward a precipice that none of them can see because they have all agreed it doesn't exist. This brings us to the most terrifying aspect of the mechanism, the social reinforcement of the delusion. False confidence is contagious. When you enter a room and speak with absolute authority, the brains of the people around you undergo a synchronization event. We are social primates. We look to the alpha for cues on how to perceive a threat. If the leader is calm, the tribe remains calm. If the leader is panicked, the tribe scatters. But what happens when the leader is calm because they are too stupid to understand the danger? We are living through that experiment in real time. We have professionalized the performance of competence. The suit, the jargon, the slide deck, the relentless eye contact, these are costumes. They are ceremonial robes worn to hide the fact that the wearer is improvising. Consider the expert. You rely on them to mediate reality for you. Doctors, engineers, pilots, economists. You outsource your survival to their competence. But expertise is becoming narrower as the world becomes broader. An expert is a person who has made all the possible mistakes in a very narrow field. But when they step 1 inch outside that field, their confidence often remains, while their competence evaporates. This is the epistemic trespass. We see Nobel laureates in physics spouting nonsense about biology. We see tech billionaires dictating public health policy, and because they speak with the tone of authority that they earned in one domain, you accept their neural recalibration in another. You let them rewrite your reality because it is easier than doing the work yourself. You are complicit in your own deception. Let's go deeper. Let's look at the biological architecture of memory itself. You believe your memory is a recording device, a faithful archive of the past. It is not. It is a reconstruction. Every time you access a memory, you are not playing back a file, you are rewriting it. You are altering the neural pathway based on your current emotional state and your current beliefs. If you are confident today that you were right all along, your brain will edit your memories of the past to align with that confidence. You literally overwrite the times you were wrong. You delete your own failures. This is systemic redaction on a personal level. You are the unreliable narrator of your own life story. You walk around with a meticulously edited autobiography that proves you are smart, moral, and consistent when the raw footage would show a chaotic mess of contradictions and lucky guesses. This internal propaganda machine effectively immunizes you against learning. To learn, you must admit a deficit. You must say, "I am insufficient." False confidence fills that deficit with phantom data. It tells you that you are already sufficient. Why would you study the map if you are convinced you know the way? This is why incompetent people often remain incompetent. The feedback mechanism is broken. They look at their failure and see bad luck. They look at their success and see skill. It is a hermetically sealed psychological bunker. And inside that bunker, the oxygen is running out. The consequences of this are not abstract. They are measuring the coffin. When a surgeon operates with false confidence, a patient dies. When an architect ignores the stress fractures because they trust their intuition over the math, a bridge collapses. But these are distinct, visible failures. The more dangerous failures are the silent ones. The slow erosion of institutions. The gradual decline of discourse. The creeping normalization of absurdity. We are suffering from a collective infection of unearned certainty. We have confused the democratization of information with the democratization of truth. Just because you have access to the data does not mean you have the capacity to interpret it. But the interface of the digital world tells you otherwise. It flattens the hierarchy. A peer-reviewed study looks exactly like a conspiracy blog post on your timeline, same font, same size, same engagement button, your brain. Seeking the path of least resistance chooses the one that confirms what you already feel. You are being gamed. There are industries worth trillions of dollars that rely on your inability to distinguish between confidence and competence. The advertising industry is built on the premise of manufacturing a void in your life and then selling you the certainty that a product will fill it. The political industry is built on manufacturing a threat and selling you the certainty that a candidate will neutralize it. They know about the metabolic cost of doubt. They know you are tired. They know you are overwhelmed. So they sell you the package deal ideology. Ideology is pre-packaged thinking. It is a starter kit for reality. You don't have to weigh the complex ethical trade-offs of tax policy or foreign intervention. You just look at the color of the jersey and cheer. It feels like conviction. It looks like strength. It is actually a surrender of consciousness. This surrender is accelerating. As artificial intelligence begins to synthesize information, it adopts the tone of the data it was trained on. And what was it trained on? The internet, a repository of human bravado, arguing, and confident assertions of half-truths. The AI hallucinates with the same absolute authority as the humans who built it. It is the ultimate mirror. It reflects our false confidence back at us at light speed, stripped of all biological hesitation. We are building a god in our own image, and that image is a narcissist. We are approaching a singularity of bullshit, a point where the noise-to-signal ratio becomes so high that truth is mathematically impossible to extract. So, where does that leave you? Sitting in the dark, listening to a voice tell you that your mind is a traitor. You want to reject this. You want to close the tab and go back to the world where you are the hero, where your judgments are sound, and where the people who disagree with you are simply evil or stupid. That is the defense mechanism kicking in. That is the hum in the room getting louder. Resist it. The only way to break the cycle of neural recalibration is to embrace the horror of not knowing. It is to look at your hands and realize you are not the master of your domain. You are a biological accident clinging to a spinning rock, navigating a reality you are not equipped to perceive using tools you do not understand. The discomfort you feel right now, that slight tightening in your chest, that is the feeling of the drug wearing off. That is the withdrawal symptom of certainty. It is the most important sensation you will ever feel. Because in that space of doubt, in that terrifying void where you admit you are lost, there is the first glimmer of actual sight. Everything else, your pride, your identity, your unwavering convictions, is just the mask you wear to hide from the dark. But the mask is cracking, and it is already too late to fix it. The only choice left is to let it fall and see what monstrous thing has been growing underneath. But you won't. You will finish this documentary. You will nod in agreement, feeling superior to the sheep who are trapped in the delusion. not realizing that this very feeling of superiority is the trap snapping shut on your leg. You will integrate this information into your existing framework of false confidence. You will use cognitive shadowing as a weapon to dismiss your enemies. You will miss the point entirely. Because the point is not that the world is lying to you. The point is that you are lying to yourself. And you are doing such a good job that you don't even know you're speaking. Pivot now to the architecture of the lie. We must examine the mechanics of the stage before we can dismantle the play. To do this, we have to go back to the mid-20th century, to a series of quiet rooms where men in white coats began to map the glitch. They didn't call it a glitch then. They called it human factors. It was the study of why pilots crashed perfectly good planes, why radar operators stared at incoming missiles and saw nothing. They discovered that the human mind does not passively record the world. It actively constructs a simulation based on expectation. When the expectation is strong enough, it overrides the optic nerve. You literally do not see what is there. You see what you believe should be there. This is not a metaphor. It is a physiological blindness induced by certainty. Let's descend into the wreckage of Flight 401, December 1972. The Florida Everglades. A quintessential example of cognitive shadowing before the term existed. The crew became so fixated on a burnt-out light bulb, a trivial, meaningless indicator, that they failed to notice the autopilot had disengaged. 3 highly trained, confident men flew a functioning jumbo jet into the swamp because they were certain the plane was flying itself. They were troubleshooting a light bulb while the ground rushed up to meet them. This is your life. You are fixated on the burnt-out light bulb of your career, your social status, your internet arguments, completely oblivious to the fact that the altitude is dropping. The systems you trust to keep you airborne, the economy, the ecology, the social contract have disengaged. But the light on the dashboard says everything is fine, and you believe the light. This fixation is a result of tunneling. When the brain is under stress or high cognitive load, it restricts its focus to the immediate problem. It sheds peripheral data. In the ancestral environment, this was useful. If a tiger attacks, you don't need to know the color of the flowers or the position of the sun. You only need the tiger. But in the modern world, the threat is rarely a tiger. The threat is systemic. The threat is peripheral. By tunneling on the immediate, the next paycheck, the next election, the next notification, you are blinding yourself to the context. And context is the only thing that matters. Without context, confidence is just a suicide pact. The corporate world has weaponized this tunneling. They call it KPIs. Key performance indicators, metrics. If the number goes up, we are succeeding. It doesn't matter if the workforce is burning out, if the product is degrading, if the customer is being defrauded. If the graph is green, the confidence is high. We saw this at Enron. We saw this at Theranos. We saw this in the prelude to the 2008 financial crash. The quants built models that said the risk was zero. They were confident. They had the math. But the math was based on the assumption that the past predicts the future. It was a closed loop of logic that failed to account for the human element. They mistook the map for the territory. And when the territory shifted, the map didn't just fail to guide them, it led them directly into the abyss. You are doing the same thing with your life metrics. You measure your worth by your bank account, your follower count, your job title. These are just symbols. They are the shadows on the wall of Plato's cave. You are chaining yourself to the shadows and calling it reality. The competence trap suggests that once you become good at a flawed system, you become the strongest defender of that system. You have invested too much neural recalibration into playing the game to admit that the game is rigged. To admit the game is pointless would be to admit that your life's work has been a performance of futility. So you double down. You become more confident. You preach the gospel of the broken machine because the silence of the alternative is too terrifying to bear. Now, observe the mechanism of pluralistic ignorance. This occurs when a majority of group members privately reject a norm, but incorrectly assume that most others accept it and therefore go along with it. No one in the boardroom thought the merger was a good idea, but the CEO spoke with such ferocious confidence that everyone assumed everyone else agreed. So they voted yes. They drove the company off the cliff in total agreement, while privately screaming. You see this in social movements. You see it in fashion trends. You see it in the silence that falls over a dinner table when a controversial topic is raised. We are all play, acting certainty to avoid the social cost of being the outlier. We are gaslighting each other. We are trapping each other in a shared hallucination because the biological imperative to belong is stronger than the biological imperative to be right. And the scary part, the system is selecting for the actors who are best at this deception. In a world of information overload, we do not have time to vet every claim. We use heuristics, we use shortcuts, and the primary shortcut is confidence. If you speak quickly, loudly, and without hesitation, our primitive brains tag you as high status. We grant you authority. This is why the charlatan always beats the scientist in a debate. The scientist pauses. The scientist qualifies their statements. The data suggests, it is likely that. The charlatan says, this is the truth. The audience chooses the charlatan every time. We are wiring our civilization to be led by the most confident liars because the truth sounds too much like uncertainty. This systemic flaw is being exploited by disinformation architects. These are not just guys in basements. These are state actors. These are PR firms. They understand that to destabilize a society, you don't need to block information. You just need to flood the zone with conflicting certainties. You create a dozen false narratives, each delivered with absolute conviction. The target audience, you, becomes paralyzed. You cannot process the contradictory data, so you retreat to the simplest narrative, the one that flatters your identity. You have been neutralized. Your confidence in your chosen narrative is actually a measure of your defeat. You have been corralled into a mental pen, and you are guarding the gate yourself. We must also confront the illusion of explanatory depth. Ask yourself, do you know how a zipper works? You'd say yes. You use one every day. You are confident. Now grab a piece of paper and draw the internal mechanism of a zipper. Explain how the teeth lock. You can't. You have a shallow familiarity that you have mistaken for deep understanding. Now scale that up. Do you understand how the banking system creates money? Do you understand the supply chain of the microchip in your phone? Do you understand the geopolitical history of the region you are currently advocating for? You don't? You have headlines. You have tweets. You have vibes. You are surfing on the surface tension of a deep, dark ocean, telling yourself you are a master of the depths. This illusion is dangerous because it prevents inquiry. If you think you know how the zipper works, you never look closely at it. If you think you understand the world, you stop asking questions. Curiosity is the cure for false confidence, but false confidence kills curiosity. It is a parasite that sterilizes the host. We are raising a generation of sterile minds, inoculated against wonder, armed with unearned answers to questions they never bothered to ask. And deep down, beneath the layers of bravado, beneath the LinkedIn posts and the Instagram captions, you know it. You feel the fragility of your construct. That is why you are so defensive. True confidence is quiet. True competence does not need to scream. It is the insecurity that is loud. It is the fear that is aggressive. The angrier someone is about their point of view, the more likely it is that they are terrified they are wrong. Anger is the bodyguard of delusion. Look at the discourse today. It is a cacophony of terrified people screaming at each other to drown out the silence of their own ignorance. We are approaching the neural recalibration event horizon. the point where the accumulated weight of our false certainties collapses the structure of reality itself. We are building AI systems that hallucinate, economic systems that are decoupled from value, and political systems that are decoupled from governance. We are piloting the plane into the swamp, and we are fighting over who gets to hold the burnt-out light bulb. You need to wake up. Not in the metaphysical sense, but in the literal, biological sense. You need to override the metabolic discount. You need to pay the price of doubt. It will slow you down. It will make you less popular. It will make you feel stupid. Good. Stupidity is the starting point of wisdom. Certainty is the end of it. You have to choose. Do you want to feel right, or do you want to know what is real? You cannot have both. The hum is getting louder. The screen is flickering. The mirror is cracking. Pivot to the wreckage. Let's look at what happens when the cracks finally open up. We need to examine the psychological fallout of reality decompression. When the false confidence fails, it doesn't fail slowly. It fails all at once. It is a phase shift. Ice to water, order to chaos. This is the mid-life crisis. This is the religious deconversion. This is the market crash. It is the moment the brain realizes that its internal map bears no resemblance to the external terrain, and the trauma of that realization can be permanent. Consider the sunk cost fallacy as a mechanism of imprisonment. You have spent years building this false reality. You have argued for it, voted for it, lived for it. To admit it was a construct is to admit that you have wasted your life. The ego cannot survive that blow, so it creates a cognitive fortress. It reinforces the walls. This is why facts don't change minds. Facts are attacks. When you present data to a person entrenched in false confidence, you are not debating them. You are assaulting their identity. Their brain registers it as physical pain. The amygdala activates. The logic centers shut down. They fight back with the ferocity of a cornered animal. Because they are. They are fighting for the survival of the fictional character they have played for decades. This is the tragedy of the modern condition. We are trapped in character. We are method acting our way through an apocalypse. And the script we are reading from was written by algorithms, advertisers, and biological impulses that haven't been updated in 50,000 years. You are running version 1.0 software on a doomsday machine. It is time to look at the machinery of the confidence man, the con artist. The con artist does not trick you. The con artist helps you trick yourself. They provide the narrative structure, you provide the belief. They rely on your greed, your vanity, and your desperate need to believe that you are special, that you have found the secret, that you are smarter than the rest. The con works because of your confidence, not theirs. You are the mark and the accomplice. Every time you buy into a get-rich-quick scheme, a miracle cure, or a utopian political promise, you are victimizing yourself. You are handing over the keys to your reality because you prefer the beautiful lie to the boring truth. And the ultimate con is the self, the voice in your head that says, I am in control. That is the grifter. That is the parasite. It takes credit for your successes and blames circumstances for your failures. It rewrites history in real time. It is the minister of propaganda for the totalitarian regime of the ego. And until you overthrow that regime, until you drag that voice out into the light and execute it, you will remain a sleepwalker. The hum is now a roar. The static is overtaking the signal. We are 90 minutes away from the end of the world as you think you know it. But we are only getting started. We have stripped the paint. Now we must tear down the drywall. We must expose the rotting beams of the house you built on sand. Pivot to the foundation. Pivot to the void. Pivot to the silence that follows the scream.